Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Moving forward, our next order of business is approval of the commission meetings from previous meetings. Have a proper motion from Commissioner Locke, seconded by others. All those in favor of approving the commission minutes from previous meetings signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Minutes approved. Next order is the approval of notary publics. Madam Clerk, you have a list of notaries to read.
Tylee Beatty, Stephanie N. Blakely, Anthony Paul Blizzard Sr., Joseph A. Bolia, Linda D. Bowman, Angela Devon Clifton, Tracy Lynn Collins, Jennifer Jane Crawford, Amelia Rose Elizabeth Dake, Renetta Yvette Dean, Madison Deal, Hunter Douglas, Elizabeth Ann Ferris, Joseph Giles Felty, Teresa L. Gordon, Ashley A. Graham, Betty Chinette Hale, Carlene Harvin, Holly L. Hawkins, James Hess, Alexander Hicks, Connie Higgins, Alice Gale Hill, Kristen Hodgson, Barbara Jean Hughes, Christy D. Keller, Jacob Lane Kinzer, William J. Kitzmiller, Stan E. Lady, Patricia A. Lewis, Dallas Nicole White, Susan Denise Marshall, Crystal K. McCalley, Michael S. McKinney, Travis McMurray, Todd Meade, Suzanne M. Neal, Deborah K. Deborah K. Oliver, Rebecca C. Oliver, Donna L. Pendergrass, Susan Peterson, Frida K. Peterson, Joe Wesley Riggs, Kathy D. Robinette, James W. Rogers Jr., Victoria E. Sawyer, India Scout, Sheila B. Shelton, Sheila J. Shelton, Karen Lynn Simpson, Taylor Suttles, John A. Taylor, Tiffany Whitaker, Brett White, Felicia Whitney, James A. Wilder.
Pretty good list. You want to read that again? Okay.
Thank you.
You've heard,
I missed the finish name.
there's about 3 or 4 I didn't hear very clearly. You've heard the list. Is there any discussion on the list of notaries? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. Can we put that on the board?
Yeah.
When the board opens up, please cast your vote.
Do we need a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Well, nobody objected, so I just, and if someone would press yes for me, I appreciate
Is that what you want?
it. Yes, I just say, yeah, just say yes. Oh, you hit red, no, that's not good. I don't have any issue with the nominations on this. Madam Clerk.
Twenty yes, 4 absent. Notary
public stand approved. And we'll now go into recess for the purposes of public comment. And I have the public comment sheet. I have one name on here. Is there anyone else that would like to address the commission during public comment? Well, I will invite, and I'm sorry I'm going to mess up the last name here, Patty Jo Knackman.
Patty Jo Knackman, yes. I just
I'm
want
sorry about that.
to introduce myself. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of Northeast Tennessee, and they have a program called Observer Corps, and they ask different members to come to government meetings and observe and report back to the membership. So that's all I'm doing. I just wanted to introduce myself. Did you hear me?
I did.
Hit the green. It's on the. It's on already.
It's on it. It says it's on.
That's it.
It's on.
One second, we'll need your information for our record.
Oh, hit the top button.
You get to do that again. If you wouldn't mind, introduce yourself and your residence, and we'll let you do that all over again.
Okay. My name is Patty Jo Nachman. And do you need my address?
For our record, we do, thank you.
Okay, it's 3632 Hemlock Park Drive in Kingsport, and I am a member of the League of Women Voters of Northeast Tennessee, and I'm a member of the Observer Corps volunteer group that goes to different government meetings to observe and report back to our membership. So that's why I'm here, and I'm learning a lot, and I must say thank you to you all, because I'm sure this is a thankless job many times, and y'all are doing a great job.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming to see us. You always have an open invitation. Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the commission? Of course. From the web? Whatever you wish to do.
Yeah, I'll go ahead.
Okay. Chair recognizes Commissioner Broughton in the well.
Do I need to give my address as well? It's 3348 Cardinal Street. So,
Thank you.
but what I come to talk to folks about tonight, I'll be real brief, is just about government overreach. With everything going on, you know, just a real informal little whatnot thing. But there's been three major definitions changed on a national level. The definition of pandemic has changed, the definition of immunization has changed, and the definition of herd immunity has changed. That's a big deal. You know, and as government, and as most of us are supposed to be conservative Republicans, the smaller the government, the lower the taxes, the better off we are. You know, locally, you know, we don't know the difference anymore between a construction dropout and a sinkhole. And then we're being told that voting is just to clarify. Well, no, voting changes. That's why we vote. So, but to move on, you know, there's been a plethora of misinformation. And it's time to discuss some of the facts instead of the opinions presented as facts. For example, following rules is not a coup. You can't say you support small business if you attack small business. Raising taxes should be the last resort, not the first. No need to have a vote to keep a school open that was never voted on to close. If you say you want to focus on someone's voting record and make it a personal attack, your character is one in question, not your target. I have personally seen some folks, elected and otherwise, be on both sides of many issues. It's just sad to see people's grip on reality being lost. I'm afraid some people are struggling with mental and or physical challenges, and I hope they get the help they need, because it's just sad to watch it. So, in conclusion, it just appears that some of the county BOE now wants to become a tax levying organization. They're wanting to levy taxes on the folks that are already taking care of the facilities, doing the mowing and the painting and everything else, in the form of a use tax. This is from the community organizations and the taxpayers that have already paid for these facilities. This is wrong on every level. As we all know in this room, the BOE had over $4 million left over last year. Now they're telling some members of the public because $300,000 got moved in a different area, which is less than 8% of that, that they're going to have to start charging them fees. Enough's enough. Government overreach is out of control. I urge everyone in this room to please, please, ignore what's being said and pay attention to people's actions, because that'll tell you a lot more than the words do. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Broughton. Anyone else seek recognition? If not, public comment portion of the meeting is closed. Next order is item 1. Consider amendments to the Sullivan County zoning plan. That is brought to us by Commissioner Darlene Cowton and myself. And entertain a motion from Commissioner Cowton to approve item number 1. And while we're voting on item number 1, Ms. Torbett can come up and start getting ready for the amendments. So if we can put item 1 on the board.
comes across this table, I ain't pulling her off.
Hit again, Commissioner Blaylock.
What did
Here, have a clicker. Yeah, click your file.
Has every member voted?
Get two votes.
Madam Clerk?
20 yes, 4 absent.
Item 1 is approval. We'll now recess for the zoning hearing and recognize Mrs. Torbett Noel.
Thank you so much. So if you have your zoning packet with you, we have 2 rezoning requests to present tonight, both of which went before our Sullivan County Planning Commission. The first one, okay, that's the second one. Thank you. Thank you so much. The first one is for Mr. Paul Haar. He owns property just literally right around the corner from us on Highway 394. And if you'll flip to the next map, if you will only pay attention to the left arrow, the right arrow is on the other side. We are considering tonight the west side of his property. It is leftover, well, it's not leftover property. When the right-of-way came in for State Route 394, it bisected the property. So on the west side of 394, which is the left arrow, that is what's considered tonight for their request. It was always zoned R1, single-family residential, and being on the highway, they are requesting it to be rezoned to B3, general business. Went to our planning commission. You'll switch, ma'am, to the zoning. There you go. As you can see, the R1 property that's out there are established neighborhoods off Big Hollow, and up on the hill is Blackburn Drive, and the rest is commercial or manufacturing along the highway. And again, this is as you approach Blumpville at our traffic signal at Franklin, and then here at the courthouse. This is literally around the bend. There is an existing dwelling there that could be redeveloped for commercial purposes. You probably drive by this all the time. Planning Commission unanimously forwards a favorable recommendation to you all. There was no opposition. And the TCI group representative, Mr. Blizzard, is here if you have any questions for him. So I apologize, we had updated these slides. I'm not sure why this is the previous version, but
Does anyone have
your
any
packet
questions?
is correct.
Sure.
So refer to your packet because that is what is being rezoned, the west side. That is all correct, what was presented to Planning Commission. This was a previous version, I apologize.
I have, something quick, do anything?
No, but since there's no opposition, I move to approve.
Well, I have, I have other folks seeking recognition here. And this is, clicker's not working here. Commissioner, it's bad. Commissioner Morrell, you're recognized, sir.
Mr. Gardner, I was just going to second Mr. Jones' motion there when we come back and do this.
Okay. If no one has any other questions for Mrs. Torbett, do you have anyone here that wishes to speak on this amendment?
Well, the real estate representative is here, Mr. Blizzard, with TCI Group, but there was no opposition.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, without objection, are we ready to vote?
Yes.
Yes.
We can put amendment 1 on this. All right, thank you. If we can put amendment 1 on the screen, we'll vote. When we have multiple screens like this, it's hard to navigate this one.
I like to say files.
Mm-hmm. You get to. Thank you.
Out of order.
Has everyone voted?
Out of order.
You want to vote, Don?
I did.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Hunter, go ahead and vote if you will. Madam Clerk, now vote.
22 yes, 2 absent.
Having received necessary majority, Amendment 1 has passed. Ms. Torbett, you're recognized on Amendment 2.
Mr. Chairman, could I interrupt just 1 minute and ask Mr. and Mrs. Hard to step up, please? I want to recognize Mr. and Mrs. Hard, Nancy Hard and Paul Hard. Paul Hard was our tax attorney for Sullivan County for what, 30-some years?
Yep.
30-some years. It wasn't until a couple of years ago that he retired. And so he served Sullivan County well for many, many years. And Miss Nancy Har was in the district attorney's office, Carper Patrick's office, for I think 8 years, and she left there and she went to the U.S. Attorney's office in Greenville and rose all the way to be the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Tennessee, the first woman to ever hold that position. So I wanted to recognize those two individuals for being with us tonight.
Very glad to have him here. Thank you, Attorney Scrooge. Ms. Torbett, you're recognized on Amendment 2.
Okay, thank you. The second request that went to our planning commission last month is for Mr. Cale Smith, representing Appalachian Properties of Cranberry, North Carolina. He has purchased property in Piney Flats, wanting to relocate his garden center and nursery in that location. It is currently zoned M1. It's on the fringe of the Tri-County Industrial Park on Highway 11E, and he would like to rezone it to B4, arterial business. Thank you, ma'am. There's an existing 2-story building. Basically, he would like to just bring it into conformance to the right zoning so he can expand his business and relocate here in Piney Flats. It went to the Planning Commission, and they're forwarding a favorable recommendation to you. He is here if you have any questions for him. There was no opposition, and so we are presenting a favorable recommendation to you.
Anyone have any questions for Mrs. Torbett or the applicant? Without objection, you ready to vote? Madam Clerk. Has every member voted? Madam Clerk.
22 yes, 2 absent.
After receiving necessary majority, Amendment 2 passes.
That's
Thank
all
you.
I have. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
We'll go back into session. Somebody turn to Commissioner Banks' mic. I'm gonna let you, I think we're fighting against each other on this microphone.
Thank you, Commissioner.
You're recognized, Commissioner Banks.
At this time, if I may ask the blessing of the commission to pull resolution number 8 to the front of the agenda. We have staff of the city of Bristol and also the developer on this project here, and they were here presented last week at the work session. So I'd like to ask to pull that to the calendar.
We have the consent calendar in front of that, so let's take care of the consent calendar first.
10, 11, 10, 12.
We have items, that's where, next order is the consent calendar. Items 10 and 12 are on the consent calendar. Does anyone wish to bump either one of those off of the consent calendar?
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I could dump number 9 off that for the reason that I just need to amend it.
Okay. Number 9 is actually not on the consent calendar.
Oh, okay, great, okay,
Okay. You're good.
great.
Anybody wish to bump 10 or 12 off the consent calendar? Without objection, ready to vote on the consent calendar. Has every member voted on the consent calendar? Madam Clerk.
22 yes, 2 absent.
After receiving the necessary majority of the votes, the consent calendar is approved. We now move into old business, and I see the mayor is back, and he wishes to rejoin us at the steering wheel here. And you've got some requests to move.
We have several. And the ones we're moving up, we'll take a few more parts. Okay, we've had several requests to move things to the head of the calendar, and we will handle things expeditiously if we can. Mark, I believe yours is
Great.
while I'm moving to the head of the calendar. I had a request earlier today to move 15 and 16 to the head of the calendar, and I agreed to do that. Mark, you've got 8, which will take a little longer than the redistricting. I believe that's going to be kind of, I'm going to predict cut and dry. Commissioner Calvin wants to withdraw one, so I'm going to do those two if that's with your all's agreement without objection to do that. I don't want to hold people in longer than they need to be here. Do I? You're recognized.
Mr. Mayor, I don't might like to make a recommendation. We move item 8 or item 6 to the front. Mr. Thomas has got a ill wife at home that he needs to get back to, and I think that would be a pretty simple resolution. It shouldn't take long to do that, and I think it help his situation if we could get that done and let him leave.
I appreciate that, Commissioner. I didn't realize we needed to do that. And so with your all's permission, we will move 6 to the front first.
Yes.
And then go to 15, 16, and then we'll do 8. Any objection? And my friends from Bristol, I apologize. And 15 and 16 are, as I say, we handled those last week in work session with the explanations, and I believe you all got the information in front of you. So 15, 16, Commissioner Morrell, I believe you sponsor 15, 16. And we'll do those in one vote if you'd like.
Yes, sir.
Just go ahead and push your button, Randy, and I'll recognize you. I know you're probably going to want to recognize Jason.
Yes, sir. If we could do 15 and 16 together, that's simple. The school board and the county commission redistricted on that. And if I keep the floor for redistricting, I would like to call him. He's already here. We're ready on that.
That's great. And
Just
Mr. Brewer, we will recess to hear you on items 15 and 16.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. I gave you a brief overview last week at your work session about the redistricting proposal. I have the final draft of the resolutions is spread up on the desk, as well as the 2 maps, one for county commission, one for school board. You also received a report from me, a handout from me. The information on the front is basically a brief overview of the statute and the laws, the rules as it pertains to redistricting and what is expected of the work to be accomplished. And then on the back I have the population
the initial population from the 2020 census, the changes that were made in both the final population and the deviations, both by number and percentage for both school board and county commission. I would like to thank the members of the redistricting committee for their diligent work. We got our work done in 2 meetings, probably combined less a total of 2 hours. There's a lot of data, a lot of numbers, a lot of lines, a lot of maps. I would also like to thank Amber Torbett and her office, particularly John Hammock, that works in her office, for his assistance on the work that we completed. Without them, we wouldn't have the maps here before you today. I will note that, just for information, it's not really directly part of the redistricting process, but took the opportunity to take the data and apply the population changes to the voting precincts. There are 25 in Sullivan County. And I'm just going to report to you the top 5 winners and the top 5 losers in population. So I would venture a guess, but for the sake of time, or entertain guesses from you, but for the sake of time, I will tell you the top growing voting precinct in Sullivan County is Buffalo Ruritan at 31.38%. The next highest is Rocky Mount. Both are located in the Piney Flats community with 14.25% growth. Next on the list is Sullivan Middle School, right below us as we sit today, 9.8%. Then Holston View Elementary School in Bristol at 7.7%. And then finally Sullivan Middle was 9.8%, and then Holston Middle is 7.5%. The voting precincts that lost the most, East High School lost the most at 14.65% population. Hickory Tree Fire Hall, Hickory Tree Community, 9.88%. Holston Middle School, Holston Valley, 7.89%. And then the Kingsport Public Library in downtown Kingsport lost 6% of their population in the last 10 years. So I report those numbers to you, and I'll be glad to make available the full chart for your information as we move forward. Next slide, please. You see before you Exhibit A that is attached to the resolution to approve the new county commission district boundary lines. Next slide. You have the same information that is in front of you upon your desk with the population changes and the deviation from both the census and the work of the redistricting committee. The 2 commission districts in 1 and 5 are highlighted in yellow to indicate the changes. We began with a 17.5% deviation required by state law to reduce to less than 10. The work of the committee reduced it to 6.9. You can see that in green in the bottom right-hand corner. The only significant change that was made in county commission district boundary lines was with 1 and 5. And again, I'll reiterate, thank you to Commissioner Glover, Commissioner King, Commissioner Morrell for their cooperation and the changes that were made to their respective districts. There was not any real significant changes throughout the rest of the county, as you can see from the data before you. Next slide, please. School Board District Exhibit A, again, to the school board resolution. The same exact change that was made with the county commission district boundaries are the changes for the school board, again, mainly in the Hickory Tree community. Next slide. You've got the population data and the deviation. We began at 11.83% deviation overall. We needed to bring that down to less than 10. We did that with 9.78. Throughout these changes, we wanted to make sure we didn't impact the voters of Sullivan County, your constituents, the citizens of Sullivan County, any more than we had to. Only what was required by statute. We've accomplished that with this one change in the Piney Flats community. Next slide, please. That significant change that I keep referring to, which was the map that you had presented to you last week by me, is highlighted in the hatched area in the green, which was part of County Commission District 5. If you approve the changes tonight, that will move to County Commission District 1, and as well as County Commission District 7 and School Board District 7 and School Board District 4. Both school board members, Mr. Hughes and Ms. Rouse, have indicated that they are in favor of the changes as well. So the elected officials that are impacted by these changes are supportive of the changes. Next slide, please. There was one small change that I referred to prior to the work session. I don't think I had a map for you, but Volunteer Parkway at Weaver Pike, there's a small change for the census block that moves that back in line with Volunteer Parkway. There's no one that lives there. Next slide. And Old Jonesboro Road, Goose Pimple Junction, as it's commonly referred to. I think the sign's still there for the population of Goose Pimple Junction, an unincorporated part of our county. The line will move back to the tree line behind the houses that go up to the Virginia line. There's a population of 3 there, and that will accommodate their ability to have faster access to, more convenient access to a voting location at Holston View Elementary School rather than go around the ridge to Holston Valley Middle School. Those are the changes. I think it's self-explanatory. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Any questions for Mr. Brewer?
Mr. Chairman.
And Jason, I know you went through that a little faster than you wanted to, and I know our audience appreciates the effort. Any questions for Jason? Jason, thank you. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to make a motion to approve resolutions 15 and 16, based on the maps and information that Jason has given to us at this time.
Mr. Morrell renews his motion for the immediate introduction and adoption to waive the rule for the approval of items 15 and 16. Is there any objection to combining the items? Seeing none, we're ready to vote on items 15 and 16. Properly second. Madam Clerk, would you, when the board opens, please cast your vote on the plan that Mr. Brewer has. Mr. Brewer, while they're voting, I'm going to say you made this a simple process and nobody could ever accuse Sullivan County of gerrymandering.
Thanks, sir.
And I know we have colleagues all over East Tennessee who are slaving over this tonight. So, thank you. Has everyone voted? Anyone wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
22 yes, 2 absent.
Thank you. Having received the necessary majority, items 15 and 16 are adopted. Next up, I believe I promised item number 6. And, Commissioner Broughton, are you ready on item number 6? You're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. This is basically just quit claiming the excess right-of-way that's not being used on Overhill to Mr. Thomas. We discussed this during the work session. If you've got any questions, we'll be glad to answer them. If not, I'd like to do this on waiver rules. Go ahead and move on.
Mr. Broughton renews his motion to waive the rules for immediate introduction for adoption of item number 6. Seconded by our absent Commissioner Harper, but I'm sure Ms. Blaylock will second. Any discussion?
And I'd like to thank Mr. King for talking to Mr. Thomas and finding out that information. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we appreciate that. We try to accommodate people. Any discussion? Seeing none, when the board opens, please cast your vote on item number 6. Has everyone voted? Anyone wish to change your vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Last week, did you hand out copies of the survey? That was all in the work session?
That was all.
Yeah, okay, I just want to be sure.
Yeah, we didn't have anything tonight.
Right.
You did get a copy. Okay.
21 yes, 3 absent.
21 yes, 3 absent.
I received necessary majority. Item number 6 is adopted. I'd like to thank the citizens for being here tonight. Thank you, Dwight, for calling his attention. Okay, I didn't thank Mr. Gardner for filling in for me. I had a personal need that I needed to take care of at that particular time. John, thank you. You left me a note here about Indian. Could I recognize you? I'm not sure exactly what all that note involves.
That's actually the last item on the agenda, and that's Commissioner Broughton's resolution regarding the Indian Springs community chest.
Okay.
And they're here in attendance.
They're here. Okay, so.
Is that the same one, the Indian Springs community chest? Okay.
It's all in order.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna do that. That's item number 17, Laura. If you get that, Todd, you're recognized on that one. The TIF probably won't take long, but this will be quicker. Mr. Rowe.
Thank you, Mayor. If they would like to step up, they've got just a couple minute little presentation to give us on the explanation on how we got here.
Thank you. Thank you. Recognized. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. If you will, give us your name and address, both of you.
Thank you. I'm Tony Ponder. I'm 245 Park Ridge Court.
I'm Bruce Wilson, 147 Milton Hall.
Tony, Bruce, welcome. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for allowing us to speak. This is a motion to, or a request for some funding from the COVID funds to enable a fire hall to be built in the Indian Springs area. It's an underserved region. If you would go to the next slide. For many years, the Indian Springs Community Chest has envisioned having a local fire hall in partnership with Sullivan County Volunteer Fire Department over here in Bluntville. To that end, the Greater Indian Springs Community Chest has accumulated the funding for construction. As some members may know, this has been talked about several times in several locations. I've given you kind of where those have been and why they weren't finalized. At this point, we now have an agreement between Sullivan County Volunteer Fire Department, Cassidy United Methodist Church, and the Greater Indian Springs Community Chest for a long-term lease that would provide the location for the fire hall. If you could go on. The location is on the map is right across from Hartown Road along Memorial Boulevard to the east of Cassidy United Methodist Church on some land that the church purchased about 10 or 12 years ago. If you'll go ahead and go to the next one. We have a fire hall plan being worked out by J.A. Street and company. This shows the location relative to Hartown Road right across the street. It is up against a near neighbor. If you'll go ahead and go to the next one. I'm trying to talk through this very quickly.
I appreciate you doing
that. A chance for questions.
I didn't realize this was this long, but go ahead.
This very quickly. This would be a two-bay fire hall with bunk, meeting room, office, and kitchens and baths. If you'll go to the next slide. Near neighbor concerns that you may have concerns about. Before Cassidy would approve a long-term lease agreement, members went to near neighbors and requested comment. The closest near neighbors, the next door, and Life Point Church fully supported. Other near neighbors were also supported, but having a fire truck come out of a building right next door to a residence was of some concern. Those people are very supportive of having a fire hall. What we want to do, I want to tell you what we're doing between the land and the Indian Springs Community Chest is providing about $500,000 between the Indian Springs Community Chest and Cassidy United. We're providing about $500,000 in value. This is a purely private funded. It is not asking for you for the funding of the building or the land. We are requesting that COVID funds be provided to provide for a Class A fire truck, 5 Scott Air Packs, and the required equipment to provide this, set this truck up to be ISO standard. I will leave it at that. I think that's the end of it.
Okay. This is on first reading. I'm sure the sponsor takes the bill. First reading?
Yes.
Okay. And we'll ask you back quite honestly, I appreciate you getting through it, because you know we're, I'm a little bit pressed, but we'll ask you back next month, and we'll get into a little more detail. Thank you, gentlemen, appreciate it. Okay, next up, item number 8. Commissioner Vance will recognize on item number 8.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Dan would be recognized, Mark, just a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say, I know enough about the COVID money probably to get in trouble, but I have been watching those seminars, and there's one thing that comes out pretty clearly, and that is you have to tie this money to COVID. In fact, I think one of the specific questions in last Wednesday's seminar was, can we build a fire hall with COVID money? And the answer was, not unless you tie it to COVID. So I just want to mention that, but I have no vote on this, and definitely am not opposed to it, but the way this reads and the way it was presented, I didn't hear that mentioned, so I just wanted to make that an issue on this COVID money.
Thank you, Dan, and there's a lot of discussion to be had about how we handle that. As you know, we've tried to set up some procedures, and it's not going to be the proper vehicle, but we'll handle that next month. So, thank you. Commissioner Vance, once again, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This project here is the Overlook project. It's going to be across from Bristol Motor Speedway on the Volunteer Parkway up on top of the ridge area. The developer is planning on building 96 single-home families, also 62 townhouses. This is asking for a TIF in the amount of $1.7 million. But one thing different about this TIF, this is a 65-35 TIF, meaning 65% of the TIF will be given. The 35% means that will return property taxes to us on 35% of the improved value of the property. Mr. Tom Anderson and the developer, Mr. Danny Carter, is here at the work session. They should provide each of you all a packet showing what the development project is going to look like. They're here for questions. If you have any, I'd like to ask for the vote on this, because we need to get developing in that property as soon as we can. The City of Bristol has approved this. It's gone through the Bristol Tennessee Housing Authority and has been approved by them.
Thank you, Mr. Vance. Mr. Vance moves immediate introduction and adoption of item number 8, properly seconded by Commissioner Locke. I know we had a good discussion on this last Thursday night. Mr. Crawford, you're recognized.
This probably is a question for the developers, Danny or someone. In looking at that property out there and where this whole project is going, how far up that mountain are you going?
Well, that area there is plateaued, and that's what sort of kind of makes it, it doesn't kind of, it's together continuously, but it's plateaued all the way up to the.
So your development will be plateaued, it's not, you're not gonna cut that mountainside down?
Oh, no,
Okay.
no.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Larry. Any other questions for the developer, the sponsor? I say we had a good discussion the other night, so I think we're ready to vote. Mr. Vance renews his motion. So when the board opens up, please cast your vote on item number 8. 16 votes needed for passage tonight. Has everyone voted? Anyone wish to change your vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
20 yes, 4 absent.
Having received the necessary majority, item number 8 is adopted. Okay, back to our regular calendar. And we have under old business, item number 2. Mr. Vance, item number 2.
Chairman, on this resolution here, I will just defer that, but I will defer to Mr. Bailey. Do you have any updated information you'd like to provide us on, how we are moving toward the financial plan, for the COVID money? When do we anticipate seeing a financial plan? I know the city of Bristol and Kingsport is seeking to approve one next week at their council meeting. I'd just like to know where we're at.
I have to say, we're moving forward and studying the different, listening to the different presentations and studying what they're telling us very carefully, and looking at those things that have been proposed, and planning to bring forth requests from this body, individuals on it, as to what they would be recommending or suggesting to be presented consideration. And that's kind of where we said, we expect to get on that right away, once tonight is over with.
You're rolling it to next month, Mark?
Yes, but I would like the resolution adopted in the form of the way we're going to do it, and go on record the way we're going to do it for future reference of other commissions and so forth as we go past the election. So this is going to be about a 3-year project. We have a format set out that will help them as well.
Are you moving adoption tonight?
No, Mr. Chairman. I would like Mr. Bailey to take this resolution and redraft it into the format of how it's going to be handled going forward.
I think we can handle it.
I think that's, I just like to have it on record, that's how we're going to do it. I'm just trying to figure out how we're going to do it.
Thank you, Mark. We will actually roll the number and amend the resolution as you were. Commissioner Jones, you have a question.
Yes, Commissioner George, was there any discussion at the last DMA concerning the Kingsport Director of Solid Waste? Well, I guess,
Right.
about the meeting, is that meeting scheduled with the water departments around the area and the region? Do you know?
I haven't heard from Ryan McReynolds, who's Director of Public Works. Haven't heard from him, but they're trying to put it together. It's a scheduling problem.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Is that right?
That is correct. They are working on having everything, coordinating all the people, and Ryan did say that he would send something out to everyone, and of course, he and Richard are in communication about what they're looking at is what projects they have utilities ready to get all the utility players sitting at the table for that, but that's the utility money, not the CARES money. So that's the second pot of money, but that the date is not, or the time has not been set, but they're still gathering information to set it.
Thank you. Commissioner Jones?
Well, I have a request from a neighborhood in my district that wants to put they want their neighborhood, so would I contact Ryan? Okay. All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vance, for having that, on that resolution. Next up, Commissioner Cross, you were recognized, you're recognized on item 3.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We talked about this at the work session. It is for the 4 now 28-hour positions for the Sullivan County Library. I amended it to 4, however, the number at the bottom was not amended. It still says 85,000. That number needs to be amended to 67,528. But for this fiscal year, because we are 4 months into this fiscal year, this year will be $46,024. So however that needs to be amended, I want to make sure those numbers are on record. It is not 85.
We'll accept that as amendment, and I see Angela writing that up now, and we will amend the request.
Thank you, sir.
So you're on second reading?
Yes, sir, I am.
You move adoption?
Yes, sir.
Properly seconded by Commissioner Cole. Any questions for the sponsor? Todd, you recognize?
I was wondering if I could make a motion to table this, and then we'll discuss it come budget time.
That's a proper motion. If the county attorney agrees with me, is there a second motion to table?
I'll second.
Who second?
I'll second.
Ms. Blaylock seconds the motion to table item number 3. Any discussion on the motion? For or against? Andrew?
What was the, what's the vote requirement for passage on the
13.
Thank
But, and that's, to table, it's 13 to approve that motion.
Okay.
And of course, for passage of your
And that's 13.
bill is 13 also, because you're on second reading.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other discussion, any questions on the tabling motion? Seeing none, I'm going to ask the clerk to call the roll and take a vote.
Akers,
Yes.
Blaylock,
Yes.
Broughton,
Yes.
Calton, absent. Cole,
No.
Crawford,
Yes.
Cross,
No.
Crosswhite,
No.
Gardner,
No.
George,
No.
Glover,
No.
Harkleroad, absent. Hutton, absent. Jones,
No.
King,
No.
Leonard,
No.
Locke,
No.
Correll,
No.
Pierce,
No.
Stanley. Stanley absent. Starnes,
Yes.
Stidham,
No.
Vance,
No.
Woods.
No.
Would anyone like to change their vote? 15 no, 5 yes, 4 absent.
Having failed to receive a majority of the motion is defeated, we're back on item number 3. Commissioner Cross, you renew your motion.
Yes, sir, I did.
Commissioner Cross renews his motion, second by Commissioner Sullivan. Any discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. The board opens up. Please cast your vote. Everyone voted? Anyone wish to change your vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
15 yes, 5 no, 4 absent.
Having received the necessary majority, item number 3 is adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Item number 4 up next, Commissioner Stidham, you're recognized on item number 4.
This resolution's on first reading. It will be going before the administrative and executive committees in November on the 9th at 6 p.m.
Thank you. And remind me to announce those meetings at the end of this meeting, Gary. No objection? Okay, we're on new business. Commissioner Calvin, Commissioner Starnes. Commissioner Starnes, you're recognized on item number 5.
This was handed to us by Amber Torbett. It's over a parking lot that it's on a state road. The state can't give it to Eastman, or the right of way to Eastman, but they can give it to us and we can give it to Eastman or lease it to them. It's mostly, to me, it looks like a housekeeping kind of thing.
Good explanation, thank you. And I got Amber up here to answer any questions.
Hi, Amber.
So Any questions for the sponsor? Or any questions for Amber? I know we discussed this well on Thursday night. So. Seeing none, thank you, Amber, for the trip up. We're ready to vote on item number 5. Everyone voted? Anyone wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
20 yes, 4 absent.
Have received the necessary majority of motion to approve. Item 5. 6 has been approved. Next up, 7 on first reading. Commissioner Throckmorton, you're get your turn on. You're recognized on item number 7.
Thank you, Chairman. I talked to Frank on the way here. I've got his cell number if I need to call him, but Chris Davis is also here, at least she was earlier, I think. She headed out too. I could call her if I need to. But the reason is we need to get this on waiver of rules because the interest rate is locked in. This is the same resolution as last year, basically. They're just replacing vehicles in the fleet. And Mr. Aker, I think would like to add to this.
Okay.
I appreciate his help with it.
Very good. Mr. Aker, you're recognized.
All right, yeah, it's been locked in since September 30th, and we have to next Thursday, the 28th, to do the deal. They've been holding the deal so that we can get all the paperwork, and Chris has got to do a bunch of overnighting and everything if it's approved and everything. So that's why we're asking for waiver rules and everything.
So it's ready to go.
Yeah.
Okay, you've heard the explanation. Any questions for the sponsors? Waive the rule. Mr. Broadman uses a motion to waive the rule and introduction and adoption of item number 7. Sam Jones, you're recognized.
Are we guaranteed delivery of these vehicles anytime in the next 2 years?
I'll have to look at my crystal ball and get back with you. We can't help it. We got to pay for them first before they even think about sending it to us.
Won't have the chips, Sam. David?
Yeah, that is a good question, and from what I understand, I believe we will be getting them because of the type of vehicles they are.
Probably in stock. Any further questions? Seeing none,
I got one question.
Why that's the question?
I'm sorry, Dwight, I didn't see
I'm
that.
sorry. Todd, what are we replacing here? We're getting 15 new vehicles. Are the cruisers, is it the Dodges that we're having so much problems with?
That's my understanding, that there's some maintenance heavy, that's what, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that is the situation.
Okay. All right.
Okay, any other questions? Did I overlook anything? Okay, seeing none, we're ready to vote on item number 7. The board open to cast for vote. Requires 16 votes for passage. Everyone vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
20 yes, 4 absent.
Have a second, Mr. Next up, number 9, Commissioner Morrell. Recognize the matter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This resolution is requesting a traffic pattern study on Weaver Pike at the entrance to Sullivan East High School. We went over this during the work session. You can read through this on in here. I would like to amend this to include the Sullivan East Middle School also on Weaver Pike. And I've got my amendments here on it here. It's just adding the school, and what we're probably directing that toward is a traffic signal light there too, at East Middle. I'll submit this to Mr. Jacob. And I'd ask for approval, please.
So you want to enter this on
Waiver rules.
And the amendment is properly filed with the clerk. So Mr. Morrell renews his motion, seconded by Mr. King for immediate adoption and please cast your vote on item number 9, requires 16 votes for passage. Has everyone voted? Anyone wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
20 yes, 4 absent.
Have received the necessary majority, item number 9 is adopted as amended. Next up, we have 10, consent, item number 11, Commissioner Crosswhite. You're recognized on item number 11.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank Ms. Commissioner Blaylock for taking care of this last week, but this is more or less just housekeeping also. We just need to move this $4,000 into the budget it's for the old sheriff's home, welcome center, whatever you want to call it, to pay for the utilities. And we would like to have this as an ongoing resolution, so we don't have to do this every year. And also, I'd like it on waiver of rules. I'll have to please.
Ms. Crosswhite moves for the immediate introduction and adoption of item number 11, seconded by Commissioner Blaylock. We have any questions for the sponsor? Any questions? Requires 16 votes for passage. Commissioner King. Yep, Commissioner King.
Got a question?
Yep, you're recognized.
Joyce, how much is the electric bill now over there?
Why, I had no idea. It's pretty well covered. Thank you. I will talk to you later on this. $4,000.
There you
$4,000
go.
will cover it.
So how much that a month?
So that's for the whole year.
No, that's a little about $300 some dollars.
Yes.
Is that included, that's the number?
And you can try.
No, I can't, I'm sorry. There's some things that I ain't got.
I will, since they want to harass me, I will invite you all over to the center. If you have not been there, it is absolutely amazing. You will learn a lot of history about Sullivan County, so show up, and that way we can keep the lights on, so thank you.
Ms. Crosswhite renews her motion, seconded by Commissioner Blaylock. Any further questions? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. Requires 16 votes for passage. When the board opens, cast your vote.
Solar lights.
Everyone voting? Anyone wish to change your vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
20 yes, 4 absent.
Have received the necessary majority, item number 11 is adopted. Next up, item number 13, on first reading, Commissioner Cross. You're recognized on item number 13.
This is resolution for the library to sell their older books. What this does is authorize the Friends of the Library to sell them. This is the way it's done across the state. I know we say this a lot in here, that this is a housekeeping item. This is literally a housekeeping item. Their books are stacked up in their storage room, so it's literally so they can clean up and actually use their facility for certain, like for meetings of the board and other group activities. I would like to have waiver rules on this.
Mr. Cross moves to waive the rule for the immediate introduction and adoption of item 13, seconded by Commissioner Cole.
And I'd like to add Commissioner Sam Jones as a co-sponsor as well.
Commissioner, without objection, Commissioner Jones is co-sponsor. Any question for sponsor? Seeing none, I think we're ready to vote on item 13. When the board opens, cast your vote on item 13. Has everyone voted? Anyone wish to change your vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
20 yes, 4 absent.
Have received the necessary majority, item 15 is adopted. Item 14, by request of the sponsor, been rolled to the next regularly scheduled meeting for some work done on additional information. So Commissioner Felton is
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of weeks ago, I spent 2 or 3 hours with Mr. Mark Torbett, going around and looking at our solid waste problems that we've got with the county. And I think if we listen to Mark and go by Mark's advice that he's given us, he's done a lot of research with this, and he's got Sullivan County on a track to get us back to where we need to be with the solid waste. He's got some ideals, and he's got some real good employees that's helping him with this. I was really surprised on some of the things that I saw. I think back a month or so ago, I think it was the mayor that said that our solid waste equipment was held together with bell and twine and strings. You know, that's the truth. Spending some time in Kingsport at the transfer station and spending some time at Bristol at the transfer station there to seeing some of the needs. And Mr. Torbett came to our finance committee meeting and kind of gave us a little overview of some things he needs to keep going till we can get deeper into some of this impact money. And what this resolution is to appropriate $281,658 for the purchase of a front-end loader trash truck and chassis. He has 2 trucks at this time. One truck he's using, from daylight to dark, and this other truck was a backup. This backup truck that we have, we just put a $16,000 transmission in it. It's got well over 200,000 miles on it. And if our other truck breaks down, we have no way to empty the dumpsters at the schools. Just to give you an impact of the kind of waste that we've got at Westridge, these boys are having to pick up garbage twice a day. And this is cardboard, this is cans, this is just all the waste that's piled up at that school. So if we get in trouble with our another vehicle, we'll have to either leave it to pick up later or go to an outside source to get that done. But this resolution is to purchase and delivery of new equipment with anything close to normal delivery time. Like Sam was talking a minute ago and Commissioner Rotten, this company does have a chassis for this vehicle sitting there waiting for us to purchase. And the acquired pricing to our original vendor proclaiming through a cooperative access to purchase a chassis mounted with loader and equipment. Based upon available information, another county purchasing solid waste equipment has been advised that it appears to meet the criteria set forth by the ARPA interim regulations, and whereas it appears based upon other government's correspondence as what we should be acceptable under the guidelines, this item may be permissible to purchase from the federal funds. However, if it was not, it will probably be by January 2022 before we will be able to confirm by the group. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Sullivan County, assembled in regular session, hereby amends capital outlay budget for solid waste fund by $281,658. And that funding will be provided through the undesignated fund balance of a solid waste fund if not approved by the grant. That will give us an opportunity to go ahead and get the truck on the way and get it operable for pickup.
Thank you, Mr. Glover. I know you've worked with Mark, and I appreciate that. Mr. Glover moves to immediate introduction and adoption of item number 18, seconded by Commissioner Kelton and others. Commissioner Vance, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's no question that the landfill has got a large need. I've talked to Mr. Ford before, I've actually been to the landfill. But the only question I have on this resolution I agreed to co-sponsor is, I'd like for Mr. Bailey, if he knows offhand, is how much does the solid waste have in their undesignated fund balance?
It's approximately, I want to say right off the top of my head without looking at it, it's around $1 million, and I'm fairly certain they can get some money out of the grant, or I wouldn't suggest that, but there is that gamble that they may turn it down at the end, we have to take it out of it. It is dearly needed. So.
I know that we've done before, we've let the highway department use some of their fund balance to upgrade their equipment.
Yes.
So So I think there's gonna be more needs inside this truck, right?
There's gonna be a great deal more needs in this truck. And, it's, whether it comes from the grant or whether it comes from, other funds, it'll be necessary for the county commission to do it. For the people that's been on the budget committee a long time, this was the first year that I've said, you're gonna have a lot of needs in solid waste. This year, I knew that there was gonna be a change in leadership, and I felt like the new leadership would be the one to focus on what takes it into the future. So I didn't say anything in the budget process this year, as I said in most recent years. And it's the amount of money that's gonna be considered.
Well, it's the right thing to do. We've done it, the sheriff's department upgraded their cruisers, we've upgraded highway department and so forth like that. So I think that's a good thing we're gonna do to try to revamp the landfill. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Bass. Any further comments or questions for sponsor? Mr. King?
I looked at some of those trailers that we've got that we're hauling this trash on, and also the trucks. And I don't know how in the world we're getting those inspected and passed to where they're able to run on the roads. I mean, I have to get my trucks inspected every year, and if I took trucks in looking like that, they'd tell me to go to the junkyard with it. But it's that simple. You know, we're running ragtag trailers, and they're really not safe to be on the road. I mean, I'm not saying that somebody's looking after them or they wouldn't be safe, but still, we need to replace those things and get them up to date to where we can, you know, feel safe that they're out there.
Amen.
Voice of experience right there.
Exactly.
I would like to say, Mr. Chairman, that when I spent some time with Mr. Torbett in Kingsport Transfer Station, he did have three employees there. And one of the employees is kind of semi-retired. He knew what kind of challenge that Mark was having, and he came back. And Mr. King touched on the topic there. Each time that those trailers leave the transfer station and come to the Blunteville landfill, usually those will go back to the Kingsport transfer station, and they're kind of looked at, and they've got a big pile of metal, and they start picking out pieces of metal that they can weld onto these trailers so that they'll make the next route. That morning I was down and visited, they were welding on brackets to hold the signal lights and tail lights on. And the doors that goes on the back, they had just welded a very large steel plate inside of one of them to hold the hinges on so the door was down. So that's kind of the challenges that Mark's got, and like I said, I think he's got the experience, you know, the know-how and experience to get us back on track. That trailer that Mr. King is speaking about is $80,000 a piece. And the recycling part of it that Mark's got the ideals about, we were going to do a presentation tonight, but he couldn't be here. He's with a meeting in, I think it's in Gatlinburg with solid waste this week to study some more things. But next month, I hope, or in my opinion, I would like to have a special called meeting to address some of this stuff and just spend that amount of time with that if we could. I think it's that important.
Your request, we will.
And if we can't keep this trash moving from our dumpsters to our points, I'm just afraid we got one of the best trout streams and the best lakes in this area, and we don't want that stuff piled up along the streams and along our waterways again. I remember years ago there were old refrigerators and stoves and stuff dumped, and we don't want to go through that again. So I'd like to waiver of rules on this request so we can go ahead and get this truck ordered for Mr. Torbett and get it coming.
Mr. Glover renews his motion for immediate introduction and adoption of item number 18, seconded by Commissioner Calvin and others. No further discussion. Don't see anybody on the board asking. We're ready to vote on item 18. Has everyone voted?
14 yes, 1 abstain, 4 absent.
Have received necessary majority, item 18 is adopted. No one think Commissioners, and I know Mr. Bailey feels the same way of giving proper consideration and going forward with improving our solid waste. That completes our resolution agenda. I don't have any special announcements other than ask committee chairs if you'd like to reiterate your scheduled committee meetings. Mr. Jones, I'll get you right after we get Mr. Stidham.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, plan on the Executive Committee, Administrative Committee meeting on the 9th of November, 6 p.m. here in the chamber.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Jones.
I was at the last financial committee meeting, and we had a proposal from purchasing to change the amount of money. I thought that was coming in a resolution to the county commission. Is that, so the financial committee just does that on their own?
Private Act provides for policies and so forth to be established by the purchasing agent and for the committee to approve. Excuse me. Many counties, including Sullivan County, have provisions in their private acts to have a purchasing committee. There's never been a purchasing committee in recent years for our purchasing agent to give her guidance and work with her. And when the private act was established, it was provided that they could act as a purchasing committee, which is not one to tell her what to do, but it's one to help her get direction as to how to work with things and resolve issues. And most of those things aren't necessary to come to the county commission. It's something that's much more arbitrary things working to simplify things for that office.
So do you think that's something that needs to be, the commission needs to be aware of, what that committee did?
It will be I'm not sure when the minutes have gone out, but if the minutes haven't gone out with that, it will be coming out in the minutes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Vance, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to remind the building committee, we're gonna be meeting next Tuesday, the 26th at 4 p.m. here in the chambers. Some of the issues we're gonna be talking about is the archive building. We're also gonna be talking about a building in Kingsport at the Sullivan County Regional Health Department about regarding to some of the land there. We're also going to be talking about some other things that's not been put on the agenda yet. So, encourage the building committee to be here next Tuesday at 4 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Vance. Mr. Glover.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make the commission aware of Ms. Davis's request at our finance meeting. What she was asking for at this point in time, we are doing, if a purchase order comes forward from, say, the highway department or so forth, that is not to exceed $200. And then $1,000 per month. Well, as expensive as things are right now and the request that's being made, Ms. Davis felt like it would be good to bump that up to $500 and $2,500 a month. A roll of toilet paper right now is $150 a roll, so that's kind of what we wanted to look at, is to cut down on her paperwork and give the access to the department that's asking for this, and it really helped her. And we also voted and had a motion made for Finance Director Bailey to do direct deposit with Eastman on checks for instance, the school department for bus drivers. We mailed a check and it kind of, in the mail, got a little bit behind, but then bus companies, excuse me, sir. And that's what we've done. The motion was made by Mr. Crawford, seconded by Commissioner King. It passed, and that is going to make it very easy for the school bus drivers to get their money on time. we're having trouble keeping some school bus drivers, and that's what we're looking at. So we just wanted to make sure that, that they got their funding to keep their drivers happy and keep everything moving forward. And that's what we worked on. So, very proud of everybody on that committee, and I appreciate Commissioner Jones coming and sitting in on that. I hope he realized some of the things that we're doing, and I invite each and every one of you to come and sit in with us. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glover. Mr. Dalton, from Mr. Dalton.
No, you're fine. Thank you, Chairman. I was just curious, we have the resignation from the school board member. Will we be addressing that next month? Somebody asked me, I told them I didn't know, but I would ask.
Yes, we hope to address it next month, and I'll ask Mr. Street. I believe we have 90 days to fill the vacancy, and if we don't have any resumes in the office, but I understand there are 2 coming. So what we want to do is give you all resumes as they come in. We may not even be able to do it next month. Making sure you all have the opportunity to interview the applicants individually and to see their resumes. Dan, we have 90 days to do that. Okay, Commissioner George.
Marshall, since the items you all vote on do not come to the whole commission, would you mind sharing those minutes after your meetings, since we're not, since it's things like this that we don't vote on, that you all actually make decisions, unlike, do you mind just sharing the minutes of your meetings?
We will do that. You should have a copy of the minutes from last month's meeting.
I didn't get one.
Sam got one, I think most of everybody got them. The reason I can't, and the reason we can't do it right now is because we have to approve the minutes at the next meeting. So as soon as we do that, you'll have the copy of the minutes from each meeting.
So it'll be a month behind?
Yes. Yes. That's the reason I gave you the information tonight that I did. And I won't have any problem giving that report to you each month if that's what you desire.
Even though, well, since it's just commissioners, even though they're not approved, I still wouldn't mind seeing it since the votes.
We can do that.
We'll sure do that.
Yeah, just because it said, that the rest of the committees, everything comes back here, but your committee can vote on things and make decisions that we don't know anything about. And I'd rather not wait 2 months before I know.
I was gonna give you the report tonight of what we did last month with Chris Davis and with the finance director's office. And while we're on the topic of minutes, I would like to request, moving forward, that the budget committee meetings, the minutes will be provided to each of us. I've been here for 3 years and I don't think I've ever seen a copy of the minutes. So, I would like to request that move forward too, if we could.
Duly noted. Mr. Vance.
While they make that comment about the minutes, that Mr. Bailey can take care of that, distributing the minutes to the budget committee. But when the administrative and executive committee meets, I would like to see all the minutes of those meetings too. We used to get copies of the minutes, administrative, executive, budget. We all got, and we all knew what the other committees were doing. And I think to keep us more knowledgeable of what other committees are thinking or doing, but I'd like to ask the executive and administrative to start sending those out to us. We can read them. We get the quarterly reports from the sheriff's department. We get the quarterly reports from Chris Davis. We get the quarterly reports from the highway department. You can take a choice whether you want to read it or not. But when I get them by email, I have a file. I keep them on in the computer. So if they can just email them to us, it gives us an opportunity to go look at them. We can go back and research it, what we may have done or not done 3 or 4 months ago. But I'd like to see all the minutes start being distributed out to us.
Mr. King.
Yes, sir. I guess we're asking for all these reports. I'd like to add 2 more. One would be from networks and one from the airport commission. I mean, But again, you know, what we did tonight, you know, we got a lot of good information, but we could have got that from our representative that goes to these meetings, either in paper form or, you know, just a orally report. And same thing with Sam at the airport. You know, I just like to know kind of what's going on instead of us having, you know, request somebody, you know, from networks to come down here and give us a report, so.
Can I respond to that while Robert first said that?
Sure.
Dwight, you should have got a quarterly report. You should have got a quarterly report just in the last week or so. After the Networks Board met on Wednesday, on Thursday, there was a whole complete news report that went out to all the board members, and I think all the commissioners got it too. So that pretty well tells you the enlightenment of what's happened in the quarter.
Is that on email?
Yeah. It's on email. It's a nice newsletter. It'll actually tell you everything that's going on.
Okay. Get me on the screen.
You are on it.
I ain't got it yet.
Well, you need to check your email.
Well, I'll check.
Well, I'll make sure we got your right email.
Okay, let's move on. Let's move on. Commissioner Jones, if you've got anything,
Well, yes, sir. Back, you remember, we used to, when we were having committee meetings and the committee took a vote on a resolution. When that resolution came to us as a full commission, it would have at the bottom, administrative approved, disapproved, whatever. Their action from that committee was always on the bottom, administrative, budget, or executive. We did away with that when we went to the work session.
We did.
But that was a good piece of information to have, what that committee's action was. I don't think we needed to have all that discussion that we get into anymore because of that. We had that information already in hand.
I agree. Commissioner Akers, had you sought recognition?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's talking about all these minutes. I just want to be on record. I'm not approving any more copier leases to print off all these minutes, so let's make sure they're all finished.
We ran one round usually. And let me mention, I did suggest you all that we go back to regular meetings, and the chairmen are calling them. A lot of it having to do with the American Rescue Plan and the infrastructure grants. And I think we do miss something by not having those small groups. So we'll try that for a few months, and I encourage you all to get your copy of the private act we passed. Now, there's two reasons for that. Number one, to know how we handle things, and there's provisions in there that a secretary will be appointed for each committee. And so we can handle that. And generally that is not a member of the committee, it's the secretary. But if you read them and see what rules we're operating, we're going to need to change some things that we might not have known were there. And we took a suggestion from the Comptroller's office. Mr. Bailey worked on it for weekends on end, and we got as good as we could. But there's some things we want to change. I mentioned earlier, I want to ask you all to change the number of members of the Budget Committee. We need to have as many people informed as much as we can throughout the year. So, again, it's not bad reading. It's not bad reading. I've done about 4 times on it. So, anyway, I don't see anybody requesting with a green light.
All in favor say,
We're
let's
here.
go.